Let's get back to the breaking news. In the war against ISIS, more U.S. Special Operations Forces are now heading not only to Iraq, but to Syria as well. No exact number, but maybe as many as 200, apparently more than the 50 who were originally deployed some weeks ago. They're on their way right now as a result of potential of about 250 U.S. troops. Combat boots on the ground at one point could be in Syria at any moment. Earlier today up on Capitol Hill, the chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Joseph Dunford, testified before the House Armed Services Committee on U.S. strategy against ISIS. He spoke about the overall force of some 3,500 U.S. troops still in Iraq.
I do not believe we are limited by the number 3,500. We are managing 3,500 because that's the numbers of troops that the president has approved to date. But I can assure you that I don't feel at all inhibited about making recommendations that would cause us to grow greater than 3,500 were I to believe that would help us to defeat ISIL. The enemy doesn't respect boundaries, neither do we. We're fighting a campaign across Iraq and Syria, so we're going to go where the enemy is, and we're going to conduct operations where they most effectively degrade the capabilities of the enemy.
Representative Mike Coffman is a Republican from Colorado. He's a member of the House Armed Services Committee. He was at today's hearing. He's with me right now. Representative, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Were you satisfied by what you heard from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs?
Well, I think we are moving in the right direction. I think that the notion of putting special operators in theater to take out high-value targets is positive. Going after their revenue sources, such as oil tankers or trucks, I think is positive. I think we still could be more aggressive in terms of pursuing the oil infrastructure which fuels ISIS and as well as the local economy. But their footprint has shrunk, although they're popping up in other places like Libya. We're moving in the right direction, albeit slowly.
Because you know the criticism, I'm sure you're bracing for it. Originally, the president said 50 special operations forces would be deployed inside Syria. Now another 200 will be based in Iraq, but they'll go into Syria. That brings it up to 250. The phrase mission creep comes to mind. Are you worried about that?
Well, first of all, I think that it's a commander-in-chief who's been very slow to grasp the magnitude of the problem. I mean, he assessed them at one point in time as being the JV team. We clearly know that that's not accurate. But I think that we've got to degrade and destroy ISIS, and we're on the road at least to doing that in Iraq and Syria.
How frustrated are you that Turkey, apparently, if you believe the President of the United States, is not doing what it should be doing, sealing off that border between Syria and Turkey?
Oh, I think it's very frustrating. Because it is key to the sustainment of ISIS. That's where they are able to sell oil.
Why would Turkey cooperate with ISIS just to make money? Is that the deal here?
I think it's so complex, this region, in terms of where people cooperate and where countries don't cooperate with us on the war on ISIS. But I think the president is certainly right in pressing them. But I think the president needs to do more. I think we need to knock out the oil infrastructure that is within ISIS-controlled territory.
So General Dunford and Secretary Carter, they said they are making progress in diminishing ISIS's capability to export, to sell oil and fund their terrorism.
But we can do more than simply diminish. I think we certainly know where those targets are. Their belief is we need to preserve the oil infrastructure for post-ISIS. I think we're delaying the inevitable of the destruction of ISIS, and we can expedite that process by destroying their oil infrastructure. I served in the first Gulf War, where Saddam Hussein certainly did that in Kuwait.
When he was thrown out of Kuwait, he blew up all those oil fields, which was an ecological disaster for years and years. It may still be a disaster, even all these years later, 25 years later.
Well, they don't have that magnitude of oil wells in ISIS-controlled territory, but it's something that needs to be considered, that's not considered for economic reasons. I think there are three sources of revenue for ISIS. One is contributions from abroad. Two is their ability to sell oil. And three is their taxing of economic activity controlled territory to support them. I think we can have a dramatic impact on that economy and their ability to govern.
But in the end, when you hear General Dunford say he may ask the president for authorization to deploy more combat troops on the ground, not only in Iraq, but in Syria as well, are you with him on that?
You know, I certainly don't support the notion of conventional troops on the ground, but as a Marine Corps combat veteran, I like the idea of having special operators again to take out high-value targets, and to have people like folks like forward air controllers that are forward with those indigenous maneuver elements that can do that terminal air control, that have a visual on those targets and can affect damage.
I know that a lot of the members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, want to see the U.S. supply weapons directly to the Kurds who are fighting together with the U.S. and not have to go through the central government in Baghdad. Any progress on that front? I don't know where you stand on it, but I know that the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, Mac Thornberry, he wants arms to be provided directly to the Kurds.
Well, according to the briefing today, we're pretty much there. That there is a customs process that we're going through with the Baghdad government, but we are able to, according to the briefing today, to give arms directly to the Kurds, who have had, I think, a tremendous impact in terms of moving ISIS back. But I think we need to verify that's occurring.
Because the Kurds, as you know, they're using old weapons. They feel very frustrated. They feel the good stuff stays in Baghdad. The bad stuff is delivered to them.
When you go through the Baghdad government, I mean, when you give it to, and we were doing that, giving it to the Shia-dominated Baghdad government, who were reluctant to give anything to the Kurds, as you mentioned, that certainly was occurring. The administration now says today that's changed, and they've developed a system to expeditiously get the right equipment to the Kurds.
Congressman Coffman, thanks very much for coming in. Let's see if that really works out. If the Kurds start getting the good stuff, as we were calling it.